I'm really excited to follow Brenda because about 5 years ago, maybe 6, for Christmas, my dad gave each one of us a $10 coupon to do the StrengthsFinder test. So I took it, my children all took it, my whole extended family took it. My brother Paul actually works for Gallup. He's a strengths evangelist. He's one of the main guys. He lives in DC right now. So he got us all to take this test, and it was extremely informative. And Paul, who has been an entrepreneur his whole life, he was the original founder of InfoBases and Ancestry.com. He said that there are 34 strengths that are listed, and he said learning his top 5 was really helpful, but learning his bottom 5 was just as telling. So anyway, I invite you all to take it. I think it's gallupstrengthscenter.org or something like that. Okay, so in this short amount of time, I'm going to tell you what I've studied for the past 50 years of my life in 30 minutes. I've homeschooled for 21 years. About 15, 16 years ago, I went through a very difficult divorce, had 3 little children, moved up to North Logan in Cache Valley into my grandma's house, and prayed for the Lord's guidance. How am I going to help these children? And felt very, very strongly that homeschooling was the answer for us. It was the best situation for us. So my children over years we've done a little bit of public school. My daughter did 1 year of American Heritage School in Cache Valley, which was not the exact same school, but similar, and homeschooling most of the time for this time period. So I'm just going to I have to set the foundation. It was on a budget, a very, very limited budget, so education does not have to be expensive. Most of us learn all the time if we're open to it. So, what's that? No, I haven't pushed anything yet, so okay, I'll let you know if it doesn't. So, I think the foundation for me is I am a truth seeker. I do not buy into the systems, and I'm a student of the prophets, I would say, and I would go and I would search out, what do the scriptures say? What does the Lord say? What do the prophets say? And I would not buy into the system. I would talk to, when my kids were in public school a little bit, I would have to kind of help the teachers understand, these are my children and it's my responsibility. I appreciate your support, but I've talked to school counselors when they were trying to gear my children towards certain things, and I just didn't buy into it. So I'm just going to try to share with you foundational truths that have really helped me understand what my role was as a mother. These are the 8 points that I'm going to address. We'll just go quickly through these. When Oak asked, he was trying to find somebody that could talk about unschooling, and I thought, I think that's pretty much what we've done, because we didn't have any set school, we didn't have any set curriculum. I think unschooling to me was following the Spirit. So I'm going to go to the very bottom one. I'm just going to read that one. Well, I'll read the bottom 2. Unschooling encourages exploration of activities initiated by the children themselves, believing that the more personal learning is, the more meaningful, well understood, and therefore useful it is to the child. While courses may occasionally be taken, unschooling questions the usefulness of standard curricula, conventional grading methods, and other features of traditional schooling in the education of each unique child. And I felt like that pretty much described what I felt to do. So what is the real purpose of education? This quote, I cannot assign it to anybody, but it may be in Neil Flinder's book, but I remember it's one of the brethren somewhere way back when that I read. The true aim of education is the education of the heart and soul. I believe it's to develop us to become godlike people. And that's the whole reason we're here. So it's providing a way and a place for each child to best learn, grow, develop, and serve. That's my definition. It's helping children as they discover their God-given gifts and talents to be used in serving Him, others, and in making the world a better place. That's what my desire was for my children. How do I help them become the best people that they can become? Joseph F. Smith, the mere stuffing of the mind with a knowledge of facts is not education. The mind must not only possess a knowledge of the truth, but the soul must revere it, cherish it, love it as a priceless gem. How many people can you say love education, love learning, and it changes their souls? My daughter is at BYU, Idaho, my oldest daughter. My children are now 21, 20, and 18. She called me last week, and BYU Idaho has 3 tracks, and you can only do 2 tracks a year. They try to rotate kids through, but she was able to get onto an extra track so that she can stay in school. And she said, Mom, I don't want to not go out of school. I love learning. I love it. Well, that was thrilling to me. President Benson in 1970, I was young. As a watchman on the tower, I feel to warn you that one of the chief means of misleading our youth and destroying the family unit is our educational institutions. President Benson was the prophet when, this is from an LDS perspective, and Oak told me that's okay. Most of you, I'm sure, understand our beliefs, and many of you are LDS. But this is from my perspective, so this is why I had to share it. I love President Benson. He was a watchman on the tower, and he said things straight the way that they were, and he was very influential in my life as a teenager, and I've studied his words over and over and over on education and the purpose of education and the purpose of parenting. President Joseph F. Smith referred to false educational ideas as one of the 3 threatening dangers among our church members. Carl G. Mazer, I would rather have my child exposed to smallpox, typhus fever, cholera, or other malignant and deadly diseases than to the degrading influence of a corrupt teacher. It is infinitely better to take chances with an ignorant but pure-minded teacher than with the greatest philosopher who is impure. And I thought, I can do that. In many places, it is literally not safe for youngsters to go to school. President Elder Packer. And in many schools, it is becoming almost generally true. It is spiritually unsafe to attend public schools. This was in a speech at BYU in 1996. Albert Einstein. The only thing that interferes with my learning is my education. This is from, I hope this is okay. This was from a parent letter given to the American Heritage School I was kind of working with them, and I hope this is okay. Is Leland here yet? He's not here. So this was Curtis Minor, who was kind of heading the parent committee, and this was an original letter, but this was too beautiful to not share. Education is primarily a spiritual matter. We are dealing with the hearts and minds of living souls. We hope to teach far more than facts and skills. We desire to teach truth, to develop the capability to discern it. It takes the influence of the Spirit to learn truth. In 1875, many of you know this one, Brigham Young asked Carl G. Mazer to go to Provo to establish the BYU Academy. He said, Brother Mazer, I want you to remember that you ought not to teach even the alphabet or the multiplication tables without the Spirit of God. And I thought, I can do that. I can provide a home where my children can feel the Spirit and be led by Him. The most glorious of all avenues to truth is direct revelation from heaven. Our society will change as our education changes. There's Neil. I told him I was going to quote him. So I didn't know he was going to be here. I'm thrilled he's here. But I'm going to read a little bit more of his full quote because I know I'm among friends. A Millennial Society will emerge in our future. We can either resist or contribute to its development. The basic stewardships that will push this movement into the future reside in each family. Our society will change as our education changes. Individuals from many families must do the creative work. Here we are, some of us, huh? As this education is firmly established, temporal excellence in learning will blossom, and Zion will increase in beauty and in holiness. Her borders will be enlarged, her stakes strengthened, and she will put on her beautiful garments, DNC 82, 1-4. And the children will be taught through an agency approach to education. Thank you, Neil. Thank you for so many of you in this room that have spearheaded this movement. I know that many of you for many years have done a lot, and hopefully the rest of us can pick up that can carry the torch forward. Albert Einstein. Education is what remains after one has forgotten what one has learned in school. Abraham Lincoln. The philosophy of the schoolroom in one generation will be the philosophy of the government in the next. Think about that one. So this is our family. This is Me, my oldest daughter's Amber. This is Andrew and Ashley. And Amber served a mission she got home last year to Virginia, North Carolina. She's now at BYU, Idaho. Andrew is serving a mission in Nampa, Idaho, and loving it. And Ashley, my youngest, is 18, and she's in massage therapy school in Orem. I was just going to tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up in Orem. My dad taught at BYU for 35 years in the engineering program, manufacturing engineering. My mom was an at-home mom. She had taught school up in Lewiston, Utah for a year before she got married. And my dad was an entrepreneur, I would say, of sorts, and all of us kind of grew up with family conversation, dinner table conversations about technology and the Lord's plan and education. I graduated from BYU. I served a mission. I taught at the MTC for several years, got married, and thought that I had everything, all the blessings that I needed. And just after a few years of marriage, it was apparent that that was not going to work, and we needed to be in a safe environment. So we left, and as I said in the beginning, I was trying to figure out how I was going to do this as a single parent and raise these 3 children. But I promised the Lord, I said, I will do anything. I will sacrifice anything, because I knew the important role that I played. My children only had one chance to be raised, and I wanted to do it right with His help. So we did. We sacrificed a lot. We moved a lot. We became creative in our living circumstances. My parents went on a mission, so we took care of their home and yard. My kids had to learn to work very hard, and we didn't have very many financial resources, but we had great spiritual resources. Benjamin Franklin says, "Tell me and I forget. Teach me and I remember. Involve me and I learn." And my dad was a very strong proponent of this. You know, I grew up in a family of educators, and to homeschool, you know that people frown upon it, sometimes generally speaking. And you have to be a kind of one of those strong ones that says, I'm going to do it no matter what anybody else says, because it's my family and I need to do what is right for us. We were really, truly blessed. And I look back now and I think, going through the different years, it's a challenge when you're raising your children, as you know, trying to meet all their needs and trying to figure out what their gifts and their talents are and how to best support them and how to best help them. But honestly, the thing that saved us was family prayer and family devotional every day and family chores. You know, you get the foundational things, and then they were off on their own a lot of times, reading and studying and learning and pondering and playing. This was kind of our schedule. Get up, clean your room, make your bed, shower, get ready for the day, breakfast. We all pitched in. We all had a chore. We would do our devotional prayer, scripture study, sometimes short discussions on scripture study, sometimes long discussions, lots of questions, just a chance for us to visit and get to know each other and ask questions and talk about the gospel, and prayer. Then they always chores and school. And these are some of the things. We'd go to the library. I mean, we had a lot of, as a homeschooler, you can do whatever feels the right thing for you to do. And I wanted them to learn. I wanted them to be educated. These are some of the ways that we did it. Stephen Covey said, motivation is a fire from within. If someone else tries to light that fire under you, chances are it will burn very briefly. I felt that with each of my children. They had gifts and talents, and I needed to kind of help them be able to develop those so that they could have that internal compass. True education, DNC 93, but I have commanded you to bring up your children in light and truth. And then Elder Ballard said, why not eliminate from our lives the things that clamor for and consume our thoughts, feelings, energies without contributing to our reaching our eternal goal? Sometimes I would see people around me that their children were involved in 4 or 5 activities, and they were running them ragged, and they'd come home from school with a couple of hours of homework. These kids were exhausted, and they would come and say, I wish we could homeschool. Education. This is from Webster's 1828. The bringing up as of a child, instruction, formation of manners. Education comprehends all that series of instruction and discipline which is intended to enlighten the understanding, correct the temper, and form the manners and habits of youth, and fit them for usefulness in their future stations. To give children a good education in manners, arts, and science is important. To give them a religious education is indispensable, and an immense responsibility rests on parents and guardians who neglect these duties. Alvin R. Dyer, this was at BYU also in 1969. Many of you have probably read this. I think that by the end of the millennium, for those who will occupy the celestial kingdom, the home will be the only media of teaching children. Teaching will be through the family. These are some of the resource books that I read in the very beginning, 20 years ago, things that helped me understand the basic foundation, what's happening, help me to think outside the box, because I'm a product of public school just like most of you were. Some of these loved, really, really good ones. And then at the bottom, homeschoollist.blogspot, I started a thing where I thought, I'm just going to list all the resources. I did a blog years ago, and I haven't kept it up. But then Utah Valley Homeschooling, about 2.5 years ago, I started a Facebook group for Utah Valley homeschoolers. We're up to about 1,250 or something. I've just kept adding people, and it's a pretty good place for people to exchange information, share ideas. But I also did a blog with it, because in the beginning, I would see the same questions over and over. Different parents coming, saying, how do you homeschool? What are the best resources? So I started compiling on a blog just all the resources, all the best parental recommended resources. So I've done several other blogs, and I just haven't had a chance to keep it up, but there's still some good resources on there of books, field trips in Utah. Vital roles of mothers and fathers. This is where I feel to share this most strongly, because we didn't have a father in the home, but I knew my mother responsibility was vital for the salvation and the safety and the protection of my children. So that was one of the reasons I've done what I've done, is because of what prophets have said. Motherhood is near divinity. It's the highest, holiest service to be assumed by mankind. It places her who honors its holy calling and service next to the holy angels of God. Mothers are primarily responsible for the nurture of their children. No other success can compensate for failure in the home. There are few things more powerful than the prayers of a righteous mother. Women who make a house, a home, make a far greater contribution to society than those who command large armies or stand at the head of impressive corporations. Who can put a price tag on the influence a mother has on her children? The mothers of today have no greater opportunity and no more serious challenge than to do all they can to strengthen the home. And I knew, Nephi told us, that if we did what we were commanded, that the Lord would provide a way, and he did for us. From the first presidency in 1999, my youngest was 3. We call upon parents to devote their best efforts to the teaching and rearing of their children. The home is the basis of a righteous life, and no other instrumentality can take its place or fulfill its essential functions. We counsel parents and children to give highest priority to family prayer, family home evening, gospel study and instruction, and wholesome family activities. However worthy and appropriate other demands or activities may be, they must not be permitted to displace the divinely appointed duties that only parents and family can adequately perform. It's pretty clear, I think, to what the Lord wants us to do. President Benson, in one of his talks, a child needs a mother more than all the things money can buy. That kept me going many, many times, where I saw people all around me doing all sorts of activities and vacations and all these things that we could never do. And I read that over and over, and I knew that the Lord would bless me and my children. It's a fundamental truth that the responsibilities of motherhood cannot be successfully delegated. It's a mother's influence during the crucial formative years that forms a child's basic character. So here's some powerful talks. We don't have time to go through all of them. To the mothers in Zion, President Benson, I've just pulled out a few little clips. Children, not possessions, not position, not prestige, are our greatest jewels. Mothers who know Julie B. Beck, love her. More than any time in the history of the world, we need mothers who know. Children are being born into a world where they wrestle against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness, against spiritual wickedness in high places. When mothers know who they are, they will have great power and influence for good on their children. Mothers who know allow less media in their homes, less distraction, less activity that draws their children away from their home. They are willing to live on less and consume less of the world's goods in order to spend more time with their children, more time eating together, working together, reading together, talking, laughing, singing. And I would add that when we get to the end of this life, that's going to be what we look back on, and it matters the very most, and it should be while we're going through it as well. President Benson, the honored place of woman. Since the beginning, a mother's role has been to teach her children to provide a haven of security and love. Contrary to conventional wisdom, a mother's place is in the home. President Benson again to the young women of the church. Teach your daughters that homemaking is the highest, most noble profession to which a woman might aspire. Elder Holland, behold thy mother, just as this past October conference. No love in mortality comes closer to approximating the pure love of Jesus Christ than the selfless love a devoted mother has for her child. And I would add to all the mothers that do educate and homeschool their children, that is a Christ-like characteristic. Jeffrey Holland again, because she's a mother. The work of a mother is hard, too often unheralded work. Often the greatest challenge of all for a young mother is simply fatigue. Through these years, mothers go longer on less sleep and give more to others with less personal renewal for themselves than any other group I know at any other time in life. Do the best you can through these years, but whatever you do, cherish that role that is so uniquely yours and for which heaven itself sends angels to watch over you and your little ones. Husbands, especially husbands, as well as church leaders and friends in every direction, be helpful and sensitive and wise. Mothers, please know that it is worth it then, now, and forever. And if for whatever reason you're making this courageous effort alone without your husband at your side, then our prayers will be all the greater for you and our determination to lend a helping hand even more resolute. That comforted me when I had young children and I had to do it alone. But the Lord was with me, as he is with all of us who are trying to do what he would have us do. These were some things, homeschooling on a budget. There's so many options. Two of my children did one math online class once. My son did Williamsburg Academy, a few classes. There's so many resources out there. We did co-ops. We lived in Cache Valley and did a co-op and had some amazing experiences with about 40 families up there. And we did a Shakespeare play together. And when my children were little, we did mostly just all ourselves. But as they got to their teenage years, they needed more. They wanted more. So, in the co-op that we did in Cache Valley, we had an English class, math, history, writing, spelling, science, Spanish, Hebrew, entrepreneurship, all these other classes. And from some of the experts, some of the dads that participated, the guy that taught our self-defense class was he was still active military, but amazing. He was great with the kids. Then with each of my children, we were blessed that at different times, even though we didn't have very much money, we were able to do different lessons, a little bit of piano and voice, and they did, community things, soccer and things. There's a lot of ways to help children have opportunities and to socialize. You hear the socialization argument mostly for people that say, what about socialization? And you think, yeah, that's why I'm homeschooling. So how to unschool? Study, prayer, faith, and inspiration is truly it. Homeschool, public school, private school, all those other things. Internships. There's so many resources, so many possibilities. You're never limited. Individual gifts, talents, learning styles, and purposes. Every child, just like Brenda was telling us, we all have different gifts and talents. I loved Connor's. Amen to what Connor said today. Every single person comes into this life with pre-acquired talents to be developed and used for the Lord's purposes, and then they're happier because they're doing what they're meant to do. Mark Twain, this was also quoted in last conference by one of the sisters, but I found that Mark Twain was the original. The two most important days in your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why. Don't you talk to a lot of adults these days that still don't quite know? Even all of us. I think it's just been within the past few years that I've really realized, okay, now this is my new role in life. But it's kind of a quest. We're always learning, but children need to know that they're here for a reason. They matter. Their life matters. They have gifts and talents that God has given them for their own development, for their own joy, but to serve. Look for the good in our children and build on their strengths. So my oldest daughter, Amber, I just went through the other day and I thought, let me just kind of go through, besides strengths, which I know what her top 5 are. I know all of my children's top 5, and it was really telling when I found it out. But these are some of the things that I've noticed with her. Leadership, faithful, responsible, dependable, bold, driven, loyal, creative, artistic, problem solver, reliable, musical. She's got a beautiful voice. She's a listener, a counselor, a learner, communicator. She has great wisdom beyond her age, and a teacher. She's actually at BYU Idaho. She's serving as the Relief Society president in her ward, and all of things that she's developed in her life have led her to this point to have this leadership responsibility. Those are kind of her innate things. And then these are some of the things she developed: singing, piano, leadership, reading, writing, college level. She loved reading. So she went for several years where she read book after book after book, hundreds of books. And I asked her the other day, and she said, Mom, that helped me more than anything to be able to write at a college level, because I can see, it was wonderful for her. So in high school, she did go to 2 years of high school. Her senior year, she was in a cappella. She was an officer for FCCLA. She was in madrigals, and she was the secretary. Every year I gave them an opportunity. What do you want to do? Mostly they homeschooled, but in high school they wanted to take some other classes, and it was good. Andrew's on a mission. These are his characteristics. He's very tender-hearted, but amazing, very amazing thinker. I'll go down to his computers, yo-yos, guitar, Rubik's Cube, magic tricks. He did also harmonica. I remember the week that I was just telling Connor this. Andrew wanted to learn how to solve a Rubik's Cube. And I was still trying to figure out, okay, you got to study math. We got to get this math lesson done. You know how you are. And he took about 4 days, and he spent probably 6 to 8 hours a day memorizing the algorithms to solve this Rubik's Cube. After 4 days, he had it down. He could do it in about a minute or less. Anything that you undid, he could really do it. And then he was done. And then he went on to yo-yos. And he would spend hours and hours and hours watching YouTube videos on yo-yos. And, as the mother, and you're thinking, people are watching us because we're homeschoolers. But it was incredible because he became an expert. My brother came up and filmed him and said, he's amazing. And once he just felt like he mastered yo-yos, he went on to the next thing. And now he can figure anything out on the computer. He loves to code on the computer. His brain is wired and functions very differently than mine. So when I was trying to get him into my box, you got to do this. He taught me a lot. Our children teach us a lot. They help us understand how they learn. And now I wouldn't trade him for anything. He's incredible. So Ashley, very obedient. She's my youngest. She's in massage therapy school. She went to Orem High for 2 weeks one year. I think she was 15. It was her sophomore year. We had just moved, and I said, you can try Orem High if you want. And she said, okay. 2 weeks later, she came home and said, I don't want to be in high school anymore. And I said, okay, I don't blame you. I wouldn't either. But she had drama. She thought she'd want to do some stuff, so she just took the GED, graduated early, went to UVU, and then took 2 years of institute full-time, became on the institute council when she was 17, and just is a leader among her peers. She's an amazing spirit. And now she decided, I love the human body. I love it, and I want to help people heal. So she's in massage therapy school in Orem. She'll be done in March, and their manual is from the U of U Med School kids on anatomy. It's that thick, and she's gotten A's on everything. She loves the human body, and she's doing this of her own accord. Did this beep? Did this buzz? Okay, am I done on time? A few more minutes? Okay. So all of them, we did swimming lessons, tumbling, gymnastics a little bit. Not a whole lot, but they each were exposed to things. Of course, you want your children to be able to learn things. These are my closing remarks. This is J. Reuben Clark, 1984, The Chartered Course of the Church in Education. Youth are hungry for things of the Spirit. They are eager to learn, and they want it straight and undiluted. And I have found that. They don't want to be spoon-fed, and they don't want to be coddled or whatever. They don't buy into things. Their spirits know something more. They want to know about the fundamentals. They are not now doubters, but inquirers, seekers after truth. These students crave the faith their fathers and mothers have. They want it in its simplicity and purity. They are spiritually working on a maturity which they will early reach if you but feed them the right food. You must have one of the rarest and most precious of all the many elements of human character, moral courage. And then this is Elder Nelson, a plea to my sisters from last conference as well. I felt like this is a monumental talk. I don't know if any of you ladies want to go over and read it again, but I felt it was extremely powerful. To the women of the church, we need your strength, your conversion, your conviction, your ability to lead, your wisdom, and your voices. We need women who know how to make important things happen, who are courageous defenders of morality and families in a sin-sick world. women who know how to call upon the powers of heaven to protect and strengthen children and families, women who teach fearlessly. I believe we're in the day, there's so many amazing women. And the reason I'm speaking more to the women, the fathers are very vital, but I didn't have that in my home as I was raising my children, so I'm just speaking from my perspective. There are so many great and wonderful women with great strength, and we need to stand up and be counted. In closing, I will just share quickly that I think I'm going to end a little bit early, but you can have questions if you want. After 15, 16 years of raising my children, which we had very, very, very tough times through all this, but I just kept thinking, I know that if I keep trying to do these things, the things that I've been taught, that my children will be blessed. I look at them now, and I really feel like they're outstanding people. They're all leaders in their own right. They've got their different gifts and talents that they've developed. And about 4 or 5 months ago, my youngest daughter turned 18, and I knew it was time for me to have a new change, and I didn't know what was next. You know, my oldest is at BYU, Idaho. My other one's on a mission, and Ashley was in school, and I prayed and went to the temple a lot. And anyway, ended up that within a few months, just found a wonderful man, and we've been married almost a month. Will you stand up, Mike? I couldn't ask for anybody better. He's been extremely kind and extremely supportive. And honestly, it kind of comes to that thing of after much tribulation come the blessings, because he's a good, righteous, faithful man and has been a huge, tremendous blessing in my life. And I look back and I honestly know that my children have been saved from many of the things because I desired to raise them well and to raise them how the Lord would want me to raise them, despite the traditions of the fathers or the things in the world or a lot of neighbors, well-meaning, who didn't understand. So that's the end of that, and thank you for this time today. I've been really, really grateful for the other speakers and the things that I've learned, and it's really wonderful to be among like-minded people. So thank you.